Welcome to Biggest Geekus. We're your hosts. I'm Randy.
And I'm Joe.
This is episode 64 of our podcast. The date is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. What's shaking, Bacon?
Not much. We played D&D.
We did, man. That was pretty fun, though. I'm a little disappointed at the end, but we'll talk about that in Mudsword.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. Do we have any thing else exciting? I know you're working your butt off with the holiday season.
Yeah. The way all that works at the post office is kind of weird. I'm on the overtime list, and if they don't give us our overtime in some equitable fashion, then I could get actually paid for not working, which is fine with me. But It behooves the managers to make sure that doesn't happen. So I am once again in that position because they'll give me extra and it doesn't end up being much extra. So they count it. They're like, okay, here we are, keeping everybody equitable and give you this extra. And then the mail volume is low. And because it's low, it's not only low for my route, it's low for what they give me. And I end up doing it in a fine amount of time. And over the quarter, it's not, their strategy has not been good.
So they basically pay you based upon what they think the load's going to take, not not the time you actually take. The overload. Well,
the thing is when I'm out, you can't really just say, this is how long it should. You could say, this is how long this should take. But there's lots of variables that end up happening throughout the day. Maybe I have more energy today. Maybe I have less energy today.
Sure.
Maybe their calculations are off. It's a mathematical model. So imagine it not working out right.
Tell them to give it to me. I'll build it and make it work out. You'll be working 7 days in a row, 12 hours a day.
So it's a bit of that. It's a bit of not being very accurate, and it's difficult. Forecasting is difficult on good days. So that's all that there is to that. And even if they don't get it right, if they don't get it right enough evenly with everybody, let's say that their prognostications are inept, but inept for everybody in an equitable way, then it works out.
Right.
But if you got a bunch of people dragging their feet and you got some people who aren't,
right,
it might work out that some people don't even, maybe on paper it looked like they were going to be fine, but it ends up not being that. And then I had an appointment, so I wasn't able to work any extra that day. And it's some of it was how it was. Some of it was not because their prognostication was working improperly that day. It just worked out not in their favor over time. So gotcha. Here I am at the bottom of the heap time wise, which is good for me because I'm getting overtime now when I need it and in a busy time. So I don't necessarily need to be given a bunch of extra mail on the ground. What I'm given is collecting mailbox mail. So the blue boxes that you can just pop your mail in, and going to one of the satellite post offices and collecting their mail. So it's light. It's the extra duty is light. So,
okay, cool. Yeah, well, I had the 2 sad days after Thanksgiving holiday. I call them the sad days because I almost always have a test before Thanksgiving break, and I did at every single class except my online class, which is fine. They're on a different schedule, and we're well into. We got 3 weeks left in the class, and I call it the sad days because usually I got to be the bearer of bad news. I'm the sort of teacher, I tell it like it is, and I was like, if you have this many points right now, you can't pass. I mean, you can't, and it's not me. It's how the numbers work. And there won't be any extra credit. Like I said before, I don't do extra credit at the end because I got a 71%. I need this much more to get a 73 and get a C. Don't tell you 3 weeks when that last day's over, semester's over. There's no more work to be done. So today was not, I could see some downtrodden faces. Not many folks, so just a couple. It's usually just a handful. And I got a couple that are like, man, I got to get my butt in gear for this last test. And I'm like, yeah, you do. So there'll be no gifts. So, yeah.
They
What
knew
it is.
going in, they could have dropped you early if they thought that they could have. They could have said,
Well, they could
this
have
isn't
just
for me. You're
right.
this is not an easy class. So I
Nope.
will drop it and try to find someone who will do extra credit in case I need it, because some
Right.
teachers do. And I'm
Oh,
fine.
yeah,
I'm
even
fine either
some of the
way, as long
college.
as you know.
I'm not a fan of extra credit. I have a huge
Yeah.
issue with it. I think it's mostly unethical at the college level. It's unethical. If you're going to give it, and when I do give it, no one wants to do it because I really take the word extra as being the important part, because
So
it
it's
is.
harder.
So it's harder, and I push you beyond the content, right to the edge and just a little past. You got to work a little bit harder. And so what I found in the past when I was younger and kinder, gentler teacher, I used to give extra credit when they would cry, about 3/4 of the way through. It's okay, I'll give you an assignment, but I would make it hard, and then no one would do it. I always tell my students this story. I had one gal in second year calculus, Calc 2. She had this assignment and they had to do it. It was really pretty challenging, but they could use her Calc 2 knowledge to do it. And she did it. She did fine. And she said, and she had a 99 average, and that was enough to make her 100. And she goes, she just had to have 100.
That's
one of the best students I ever had. But I was
Yeah.
just like, okay, whatever, do your thing, girl. That's cool.
That's fine.
I respect that. I was a little bit like that. So, okay. Well, do we got any call-ins or emails this week?
We do have call-ins, but we did not get any for last week's episode. Maybe they were upset that we didn't play the previous ones, and they're like, nah, who knows? Probably. And maybe they probably reacted in that very specific fashion, went, and then didn't.
I bet they said that exactly.
Yeah, precisely. But no, we have a couple of call-ins from the previous, and that's it. 2 call-ins. And we the last episode, even though we didn't get any call-ins concerning it, we did get a lot of interaction for us on the YouTube page.
Oh,
so
cool.
some commentary there. So,
I should
that
check
was good.
That then. Good.
All right, so
you're setting that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Sweet.
Morning, guys. This is Taylor of Clerics Ringmail calling in to talk about spending XP in 3rd edition to make magic items. Now, it is true, 3rd edition is the only edition, 3rd and 3.5, where you spend XP to make a magic item, but 3rd edition is also the edition where the unified XP tract, that is, the same amount of XP will get you to the same level no matter what class you are, was introduced. So, knowing that, and knowing that 3rd edition is the Casters Run Away with the Show at higher levels edition, is the magic item tax a design misstep, or was it an intentional balancing act to put the magic user a level or 2 behind, the same as he was in previous editions?
Well, there's a rule of thumb: never attribute to malice what you can attribute to incompetence. So we'll go with incompetence with this one.
Well, I think Taylor's maybe even implying that was a good idea.
Yeah.
That maybe you should keep the wizard back, which I think that's true. You should. He should have to work a little harder to get to.
You have to work harder.
But stealing his experience points just felt, I don't know. On the surface, it sounded good, but I actually thought it was a cool idea initially until I realized, oh, that's going to keep him back quite a bit. And what if he makes something for somebody else? He's got to pay for it? That's crazy.
Yep. Which is what it did during a Greyhawk game when 3rd edition dropped Run Rules as Written by a buddy of mine. Now, I was not there, but I know it worked that way because holy cow, would the guy who played the wizard not shut up about the feat and XP tax he had to undergo. With that in mind, further campaigns I played with that group, I had just moved to town, were 3.5 epoch, and followed the pick your magic items and build your Christmas tree character, which At the time, it was fun, but once you got through all of the items, all of the builds, all of the splats, I went back. That's why I'm back in OSR land. Peace out, gentlemen.
Well, it
That's
sounds
kind of,
like. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I said it sounds like Taylor's working out there. Was he?
Yep.
Was he on his elliptical? Maybe.
Yep. He can't spare free brain cells for us to do
No.
exclusively. He has to multitask, but he has to do that
He's
because
a wanted man. He's got things to
he's
do now.
very busy and has a new bun in the oven, apparently.
I know, man. He's gonna have the sweet third kid. That's so cool. I love hearing his little kid back in the background.
Yeah.
But yeah, Taylor, I agree with you. That build game got stupid. The whole magic item economy and Christmas tree effect was just that has worn on me. I'm just not interested, not even remotely. But yeah, I feel you. Some wizard players complaining constantly about not having enough cool stuff and having to spend all their experience points. Did you skip one there?
No, that was last time. It was the time
Okay.
before.
Okay. All right.
So
All right.
I never
Thanks, man.
complained even a moment.
Not even a moment. Joe was never crying and moaning. Wizards are getting screwed.
I always say wizards are getting screwed,
And that's your mantra, dude.
but it was true to a degree.
Many times they did, yeah. And they still overcame.
At some point.
Yeah.
Early on, not so much. It's mid to later game for sure. So if the only thing you play is low level, then wizards never really shine that much.
That's true.
At least as long as we're talking pseudo Vancian fire and forget mechanics.
Right. All right. So a couple of these articles that we're going to talk about here, they're from Silent Josh, really from last week. The one at it's Screen Rant about Superman. I guess, I gotta watch it, Joe. I'm kind of like, I guess I got the grumpy old man syndrome. There's so many things that in the world that I know I disagree with politically with a lot of crap. And so, God, I hate this word, but they trigger me, and as I look at that article, it's talking about Superman getting older. He's been poisoned by radiation poisoning. Is that what they say?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
That sounds weird. It must have been.
Maybe if it's kryptonite radiation poisoning.
Kryptonite laced radiation is all I can gather.
Yeah.
And he's got these two people, this mental dude and this wizard chick that have been like, he works with the authority now of some group, and apparently they make him appear to be tougher. They put illusions up so he looks still to be tough. And I'm like,
which,
yeah,
I don't think that's a very Superman move.
No,
it's very dishonest.
Correct. And it's very just, I don't know,
cheesy and weenie.
Yeah. It says moving forward, Clark Kent is going to have gray hair, acknowledging the aging Man of Steel with John Kent taking over as the new Superman Metropolis. And okay, that's great. But to me, of course, what comes to my mind is now that John Kent's bisexual, they're going to push him forward, which I made it clear they were going to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I mean, whatever they're going to do, because I don't like DC anymore, but I can't help it. It's one of my favorite characters. I hate them screwing him over. Just pointing out some of the parts of the article. It says many instances.
I'm going to share the screen on that.
Oh, okay, yeah. But somewhere about, let me see here. Second or third paragraph, there were many instances where Superman is seen in the far future. He does usually have gray hair. The House of El is mentioned, some Elseworld, which is like their what if, and so is Kingdom Come Superman. It has been made clear that this is not the end of Superman, but in fact the start of a new era. And this is what bugs me right here. One where Superman is able to recognize his flaws and weaknesses and grow from them.
Past flaws.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that means. As if he's been a bad person.
Yeah, what does that even mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on near the bottom is the once invulnerable Kal-El has been shown to be weaker than once thought. Huh, really? And his son John is now the idealized version of Superman that Clark once was. Superman rarely changes. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying no to that last thing. That's all.
Exactly. And Superman rarely changes, which is true. Comic characters rarely change permanently. So seeing him with a new design and weakened powers opens up a new, fresh twist. Yeah, the twist is that a weak Superman sucks. That's the twist. But I get what they're saying. I mean, I do get it. I would like to see heroes grow, and even if they want to have them die, that's fine. But Superman, I don't know, man. He doesn't. I don't know how they justify even him dying, honestly. But okay,
Right. Okay. Was it in an alternate universe where he hopped in the sun and grew more powerful?
yeah, that was like a one-shot Elseworlds type thing. Superman 1,000,000 or something, where he's way in the future, and it's fine. Here's the thing: this storyline of him getting weaker is not a bad idea. But I do know it's done simply because they want to highlight the
new
ultra woke Superman, which is John
right.
Kent.
Right.
So because he has he identifies, checks all the blue marks that he can, all the blue check marks he has, and they're going to push him to the side. And they kept saying, I've read a couple of other articles, well, he's not going away, blah blah blah. Yeah, but you're going to make him the weak, doddering old fool in the background. They're saying, no, he's going to lead by, he's going to be the old mentor for all the superheroes. Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Yeah. Like
just
I was telling you before we started, I don't mind having an exit strategy for a superhero, especially one as old and long in the tooth as Superman. Superman's been around since the beginning. And for his character to, for the comp, but the thing is, they're not discontinuing the comic and then starting something brand new.
Right.
They're not doing that. They are doing what they've done with other characters in the vein of tokenizing it.
Yep.
Without tokenizing it, like say like Iceman. Iceman right. Just came out whatever he came out as.
Yeah.
With Superman, I don't think that they believed that they could really pull that one off very well. So instead of him coming out, and he's getting replaced by what's better, this better guy, and better in all kinds of ways.
Yes.
So instead of just coming up with a new hero and retiring the old ones who've been around for 60, 70 years.
Well, since 1930.
Almost 100.
Yeah.
So instead of retiring the old guys, which is fine to do.
Yeah.
And whether they grow old or whether they just go off in the sunset and you just don't hear from them anymore.
Yeah. Or
and
rarely.
Then, right. And then make something new. John Kent is not new. It's just reflavoring something old. So,
yeah, they've had a Superboy type thing in one incarnation or the other for many, many years. But I mean, like I said, I'm not being fully fair. I'm just in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking is, oh, they're pushing John Kent. He's because he has different sort of bed partners than Cal. He's better. And it's like, okay, whatever. I'm just tired. I think I'm going to stop with the comic book things. I can't take it. They just annoy the.
How about we do this?
What
we can do instead is get some of the indie ones, like the Comic Skate guys, and we can talk about that stuff.
Yeah, I'm about to Indiegogo, Kickstarter Indiegogo with Graham Nolan. It's one of my favorite. He was a Batman artist back in the day. Worked with Chuck Dixon. I think I'm going to support him on one of his newest ones. I'm sure when I'll get that, I'll read it and I'll review it. I'm sure it'll be good.
And Eric July should be announcing his in about a month or two. He said beginning of the year. He's had some issues with his new website, so it's kind of pushed back things a little bit.
I'm going to give that a whirl. If it looks halfway decent, I want to give that a shot. And then the next one, I guess we'll move here, is this. Yeah. This I put this on here. Now I know Joe and I both, it's not for us. Be Like a Crow solo tabletop RPG that lets you do exactly what it promises. Play a crow?
Yippee.
I mean, you're talking about playing a literal bird.
And if it is exactly what it promises, as in I get to be a bird, how fun can that be? But it can't be that. It's got to be other things. It says underneath that murder you wrote, whatever that means.
Yeah, you'll be like
couldn't get through. So I read up into the second paragraph.
Well, you're not limited. You can be a crow, you can be a jackdaw, or you can be a magpie. And
Yes, the range
get to
is
have
just outstanding.
crow aerial combat, and you can choose your fantasy, whether it's going to be steampunk crow, cyberpunk crow, fantasy crow, and you go on crow adventures and talk about going fighting amongst the gods or adventuring amongst the gods. And I'm just like, what is the fascination?
You're not being a crow.
What
You're
are
being a furry or a feathery in this case.
right, or whatever. I don't get it. I mean, clearly, once again, not for me.
Right.
But it just seems dumb. I don't even know what that is. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard of in my life. Well, no, it's not, but it's way up there. It's top 20.
Right.
I mean,
crows are familiars.
well, even let's just forget that. I know you can play whatever you like and whatever you want. That's fine. But that's just, I don't know.
Not for
They
me.
have booklets and stuff. You're actually playing a real RPG, I guess. Solo RPG. I mean, I guess, whatever. I don't know.
What
a lot of games like that.
crow would be a cyber crow? I'm sure most crows think that they are just fine and dandy as they are.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like he's hurting somebody by doing it. And it's great if he's getting he's raised more than 14,000, I guess, on his initial goal of 1,700. So good on him.
What kind of goal is that?
Dude,
that's very low. That's low balling.
Well, he's like, but his booklets are like A5. That's the size. They're gonna be little bitty.
Okay.
I mean, people want it, I guess. I mean, he raised enough money, but I just don't. The only reason I picked this article is because I'm just like, who wants to play this? What is it? But people say the same thing to me. I can't believe you want to play D&D. It's so dumb. Okay. You got 5th edition. Why are you going back and playing first? Okay.
Right. Players look to complete random objectives by exploring the world and collecting objects.
That's what a crow does. Don't they collect stuff?
Right. Communicating with fellow birds. Gripping play. Developing a relationship with humans and engaging in beak and claw combat when necessary. All right. Done. Next.
Now, this one could suck beyond belief, but it looks like if they can pull it off, I would love to go there. I think it'd be a neat experience.
Sounds wicked expensive.
Oh, it's going to be very expensive. Dungeons and Dragons immersive fantasy restaurant, amusement experience and proposed for Lake Geneva. So they're going to build this bad boy in one building, and they're going to have a alchemy.
See if I can make this picture bigger. Nope.
And they said they're going to be actors and actresses working in there as characters and servants and stuff. The waiters and waitresses. There's going to be a novelty shop. And there you go. That's the mock-up of what the main room would look like. He's securing some funding. He's got the land, I think, pretty much ready there. The Griffin and Gargoyle Tavern is the main hall. He wants to not only cater to D&D people, but folks that just are there in the area for the night and want to do something different. So you can come in regular clothes, just to enjoy a meal and kind of watch people do their thing. You can dress up and LARP with them. He's going to have a room where he's going to have a game store there where he said you can buy role-playing game manuals and dice. He's going to have a place where you can buy Etsy style fantasy-based odds and ends and trinkets, a magic shop and curios, he calls it. And then there's an alchemist that's going to be kind of steampunky bar part where you can get drinks that are going to have, dry ice and make them look like concoctions and have a kind of a steampunky look to the place. Looks like fun. I mean, if it gets built, and they're saying he's hoping spring 2024, so right in time for the big 50th anniversary of D&D when they resell you 5th edition with the bells and whistles changed. So I think if it turns out to be like what he's saying, I would love to do it. But he compared it to like Harry Potter's Wizarding World and what was the other one? Star Wars, not Legoland or Star Wars Land and Disney. So those places are very pricey. So I'm betting you would go there and two folks could probably eat for and spend some time there probably for $150, $200 probably.
But then you'd have to travel there.
Yes, travel, and it would be and that's just getting in the door having food. That's probably buying absolutely nothing.
It would depend on the price.
Sure.
That
I
could
think
be
it's
a
neat.
cool thing if it's not too pricey. The thing
Yeah.
is, though, I wouldn't get anybody's hopes up. He has to. Okay, this guy is according to this article, he's a senior manager at a movie theater. So he might have
just
connections where he can get funding, but he has to get funding. He has to get investors in this because
Oh, yeah.
this is a multi-million-dollar facility. It's
Yes.
not, I mean, there's no way. I mean, this is probably some sort of computer generated
Yes.
mock-up, right?
Correct.
This
That's
is
what I think it is.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. But to build something, this would be just one of the spaces available.
Yeah.
There
Yeah, you're
are
gonna have
5
this.
or 7 total.
The curiosity. Yeah, it's a theme park, basically.
Right. And that's multi-million-dollar.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be one thing if what they did was start out with a space that was already there and redecorate it and then say, over time, we will make this, bigger and do all the other things. But no, he's trying, and that might be what ends up happening is that he might only get enough investment to do the tavern part and then
Right.
see how it grows because.
But go ahead.
I'm not sure precisely how Disney started their amusement things, but they had a big audience to start out with. And granted, there is a big audience with Dungeons and Dragons, and many people in it have disposable income that they can just set fire to if they liked.
Right.
But not sure. This would have to be something that was seasonal. They couldn't be open 24/7.
Well,
There's no way.
I don't know. Well,
They'd
I
have
don't
to
know. Why?
At least initially. I don't think they could
Well-
initially commit to be open year round.
No, but I think they could commit to have the tavern. I think he should shoot for the tavern,
Mhm.
and then he should add on kind of like how Disney adds attractions and theme parks
Mhm.
to their whole place. And I do think with 2024, if he opened just the tavern in 2024, and let's say it was really good, and let's say the D&D movie did really well, maybe not culture icon, but people are like, hey, that's actually a good movie. Say it got a real like 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Something like that or better. And Critical Role's still busting out. I think he could be onto something because he is right. D&D is kind of part of the zeitgeist right now. It's the thing. And I have to admit, I would be very interested.
It would depend on price.
Yeah, for the right price, I would be very interested. I kind of wish I could go to Venger's. Was it VengerCon? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah, I think it's what he called it.
I don't know if you have any more tickets left, but I would love to go just to kind of be there. And that's not too far away up there in Wisconsin. So I could try if it was open in 2021 or whatever. Venger's doing it 2022. If it was open, I would consider trying to go by there. My wife would love something like that.
Yeah. So would mine. But it would depend on
prices.
and
Yeah.
all
Oh,
that.
it could be so expensive. But I think it's a cool.
But the other part I thought was kind of stupid though was they were going to have gaming rooms, which in and of itself isn't a big deal, but they're for beginners and with professional dungeon masters is the thing. And I'm like, whatever.
Well, yeah, that could be a podcast. We should talk about professional dungeon masters.
I don't mind people doing it.
No.
Knock yourself out. If you can find work doing that, that's great. But I think what they would end up trying to do is with the pro DM, try to make it seem like whatever that pro DM is doing is the way any average DM would be doing, which I don't think is probably the case.
Which is some of the complaints that Matt Mercer gets.
Yeah.
I mean, people complain about him. I'm not blaming Matt. I mean, he's super awesome.
No.
Looks like he'd be a very fun DM. But my point is, I think to think that everybody's going to be Matt Mercer is crazy sauce. And because not everybody's a trained voice actor.
Right. And there's a bunch of other things, the production and everything. Nah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's just weird. Just weird. Anyway, if the price is right, we might be able to give this a try. But I'm not going to hold my breath on it.
I wish him the best of luck, though.
Hopefully it works out for him.
I don't know if he has can get all that done at one time. I hope we can just manage to get part of it done and do a good job of that.
I think that one method that he could use would be getting the folks at Critical Role interested in it enough, not necessarily that they would invest, because they don't have that kind of money either.
No.
But they could talk about it and just raise interest
and show up and run a game.
Yeah.
Now
they would have to get it going. So if
Yeah.
they could, I don't know what relationships they might have with investors, but at least if they could get them, enough of them interested, they might be able to convince some investors to get this off the ground.
And, you know, if they play their cards right and do a good job, they might could get me to come run a game.
That would be the upside of this.
That would be, and they would get a lot of people. I mean, I guarantee I'd have one or two full tables over a couple of years.
One or two.
One or two for sure.
Yeah. It's more than anybody could hope for.
Dude, as soon as they see me DMing, Matt Mercer. Who is that guy?
Schlub.
Oh, did you have anything else in the Outlands for us? Any other?
I don't. Well, it's not going to matter. By the time this is released, the Gatekeepers is going to be released about the same time. So,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna run a live stream for the first time ever.
Get him,
We'll see
Joe.
how that works out.
Everybody, come in, help Joe out, make him do well. I'm going to try to. What time is that starting tomorrow?
I think it's either 7:30 or 8:30. Either way, this episode gets released Wednesday night, which is tomorrow night. So there's no yeah.
I'll try to show up. I'll see if me and Silent Josh. I'm gonna get Silent Josh to show up. So, all right, man, cool. All right, so Joseph had this idea. We talked about it a little bit once before, way back in the day. He brought it back up recently, and in our main topic, we're doing kind of a part one. This will probably be a series called Campaign Nuts and Bolts, and how to really dig into running, building, managing campaign for Dungeons and Dragons. But we'll comment on other things as well. And this one, we're going to
many ways they can be run, not just
absolutely right.
We are not of the opinion that there is only one way to run a campaign.
Yeah, as long as you run it like me, you're doing fine.
Correct.
But no, and we're going to do the one tonight. Part one is going to be using published modules. Basically, how to be a published module, and this would be an adventure path, big thick 5e hardback. What is one of their big ones? Curse of Strahd, or pick your favorite, Ghost of Saltmarsh, whatever. Pick one out, some big adventure path, and any one of these to make a campaign. And I really have I'm kind of going to run through my approach for many, many years. This is my preferred way to run a game. Now, you wouldn't probably know it. I ran this past Saturday and I used a module. If I handed it to Joe to read, he'd be, oh yeah, I recognize that sort of. But I change, pull a lot of the labels and stuff off and make it my own. I tear it to pieces. So we're going to go tackle this idea. And some people say using modules. It used to be back in the day, I heard GM say using modules is bad.
That was back in the day too?
I don't know if it's still now, but back in the day, I heard a lot of,
yeah.
You're no good if you use modules. You got to make your own adventures.
There's a whole online group that say that the only way to play, there's only one. And we talked about this. There's only one, and it doesn't involve modules. And Gary secretly wrote obviously, but secretly at the same time, wrote in the first edition in an obvious way that you shouldn't use modules, even though he said use modules if you want.
Even though he made them and sold them.
Correct. of course, that's advertising and marketing. It should just be ignored.
Okay. Well, we're not gonna talk about the one true way to play.
No.
We're going to talk about a different way, which is
A
clearly
way.
going to be a wrong way.
Yeah.
So you got your system, right? So you make a decision. I'm going to do Lamentations of the Flame Princess.
No.
Going to play no Savage Worlds.
No.
Going to play AD&D First Edition. Going to play Fourth Edition D&D. Pick your favorite, right? Whatever it is.
Fourth edition can't be anybody's favorite. That doesn't make sense.
I think there are people that would say it is.
They're lying.
Probably, yeah, they tend to lie, but that's what they
Yeah.
say. So here's my thought. If you really want to get started, let your module be the setting. So if I'm going to run, I always default to this, but Hamlet, Adventure Hamlet. Okay. Then that's my setting. I'm going to set it in those things. It doesn't mean I'm forced to be in Greyhawk,
Right.
but let the module set the tone. And I wouldn't do too much at the beginning unless you're really motivated and experienced. I tend to go crazy sauce, but I think you could just approach it as Hamlet is the town. There's other stuff out there, right? But we're just going to run this adventure, and the things, all the peripheral stuff that's described in the module. Most modules give you more than just here's the dungeon, fight these monsters, get the widget, yay, we're done. So I think some companies will sell you little booklets of short modules. Basic Fantasy does that. D&D used to have Book of Layers where they weren't really adventures, but they were like monster layers you could stick in.
Mhm.
But I say pick your adventure that you like. Maybe you want to run something from the old Dungeon magazine, and
Lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, you'll find something like there was one on they had there's a series or a long module on Sherwood where you played in the setting of Robin Hood, and so you could begin there, and just that area could be where everybody's adventuring and start out there. Something I like to do beyond just sort of setting the module, I like to get a series of modules. I used to do this a lot when I would run campaigns. Every area of D&D, I was a big subscriber to Dungeon, and so I would find 3 or 4 adventures. Let's say we're starting at first level. The first one would be like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. The second one might also be another 1 to 3. And then I would look for one that was like 2 to 4. And then I would find them and I would connect them together. I would add connective tissue, right? I think that's, to me, was fun. My wife could recall, especially in the old house, when we were having the third edition, she would joke with me and she would say, she'd hear me screaming. We're not screaming down in my game room dungeon where I'm concocting my adventures. I'm like, I need linkage. I would keep saying, I need linkage. And she's like, what are you talking about? I have to have the idea that connects all these modules together. So the adventures have a reason to go from one to the other to the other. But
I don't know that you really need that.
Oh, you don't need it. But I'm saying that's how I like to do it. I like to plan for a campaign. Now, if you just want to run modules, if you want to say, okay, we're running T1 through 4, Temple of Elemental Evil, big, thick super module. This is what we're doing. We're in the Adventure Pass, Rise of the Rune Lords. That's what we're doing. Yeah, you can do that.
Well, you can also just listen to your players, and sometimes they can provide inspiration for that linkage, even if it's just part of their background or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't. I'm really not trying to railroad, but what I want in my mind, especially if I'm going to have an overarching story, let's say a villain that has plans, let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I want some villain, in the first module or adventure, he's just mentioned, or you fight one of his lieutenants. And then in the second one, you find out his name, what he's up to, and you got to stop his second command. And then in the third one, you actually encounter him. So if that's how I'm planning on doing it, I want to have connective tissue between them. So to me, I always worked hard on trying to find out, why would I connect the Sandpoint Devil adventure with Hamlet and connect that to Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, right? I would find some way to place them. But you don't have to. You could just run one module, see what your players do, and whatever they're interested in. So they bite on something. And again, you can still stick with modules. I've yet to find a situation where, even if I didn't have a series of modules planned, that, let's say we're doing something, I never thought anybody would care. I place this book and it talks about some story about some dragon, some far off land. And Joe's character is like, man, I think we ought to go there. There could be all kinds of magic treasure. And I'm like, yeah, don't we have a magic carpet? Yeah, let's go there. And I'd be like, oh, I never thought about that, but I can almost definitely you'll find an adventure, like to recall the Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, if folks remember that from 1E D&D.
Yeah.
Takes you to a magical land. And I could be like, boom, that's it. And I didn't decide that. Joe did, and the party did. So yeah, you're right. You can do it that way. And it's kind of fun. I think the players will do a lot of that for you if you let them. Unlike, I'm not inclined to do that because I tend to want to have a lot built up. That's my nature. So I'll tend to have, if I don't have several modules prepared in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to go from this one to this one to this one, and that doesn't mean we do that. I mean, I have players change that all the time. But if you want to skip all that crap, that brain work of trying to connect the things, then go with a super module or go with an adventure path, and they'll take you from level 1 to however far, almost as far as you want to go. Not always. So
Yeah.
I would suggest though that if you are picking modules as a young DM, I would use short ones. I wouldn't go like, I'm going to run, what's one of the old ones? White Plume Mountain. That's not bad though. It's self-contained.
Yeah.
But I would pick something from DM's Guild or Adventure League or Pathfinder Society and adapt it to your chosen, setting.
There's also something called Adventure a Day.
Yeah. Those
website.
Yeah. And aren't those smaller adventures?
They're short. I think they compile them though, some kind of way, but yeah.
And there's an anthology series. There's at least 2 of them because I have them by Basic Fantasy. Hold on a second. I think I actually have them close by. Yep. Yeah. And you can get the PDF for free. I bought this for like $4. And this you've already played in a couple of these adventures because I've used them in our Mudsword play test.
Good deal.
And they're set for basic D&D with Ascending Armor class. And you get 10, 15 adventures that are 3, 4, 5 pages, maybe more, and cool maps.
What do the levels range on those?
The first set I got was like 1 to 8, but the second set, I believe, went much higher. It's loosely a OD&D one.
Right.
No, it's mostly 1 to 8.
Hmm.
I don't see any adventures beyond 8th level, but that's how they roll.
That's how they roll. 1 to 8, 1 to 12, or
right.
The upper bounds in OSR type things usually starts around 10. 14 is really pushing it. Most people I hear talk 10 is pretty much where they cut off.
Yeah. Now, if I could, one thing I hate to say you got it. This is what Randy does when it comes to prepping the module, prepping to run it. I can't stress enough. I hear all the time people say you need to read it at least once, and the adventures will say read this at least once. And my reaction is like, once? What are you talking about? You read it once just to get the gist. This is the teacher in me. Then you read it again for a deeper understanding. I mean, if you're setting it in your own campaign world, or if you're taking a Dragonlance module and you're going to run it in Dark Sun, you're going to probably want to change names and places and some of the character types.
Right.
I would, like I said, I read multiple times. The first is just to get a feel for how, what's the basic storyline. I mean, you can read the blurb on the back, but that just tells you the super high view. This is an adventure where you're going to go into a temple that's controlled by priests that worship different elemental beings. Okay. That doesn't give you much details. Doesn't tell you about the moat house. Doesn't tell you about why that dude's in there, that Clarette the Beautiful. So I think you need to read more. That's me. I read it multiple times. I also would suggest that you write down things. Some people are against this, but I would say write down stats for significant NPCs and monsters. I know you have books and people have books and they can work, but this is what I do. I like to have it handy. And that's kind of because I remember things more when I write them. So if I write down a monster's stats, not every detail, but the things I think I'm going to need in the combat, what I find is I hardly have to reference it during play because I've all but memorized it. You know, liches can do this. They have a cold touch that does a D8, and there's no saving throw against the paralysis when they touch you. And I write that down. I remember it. I don't have to look at it. Though sometimes I forget things.
Right. That's nature of memory.
I wonder, do you, and Joe, I know you don't run that much, but have you run a module before?
Oh, yeah. I ran White Plume. Was it White Plume? No. Well, I ran in it against the Giants module once.
Mhm.
I've run, I started running Dragon Mountain.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we got most of the way through it.
That's a campaign, isn't Dragon Mountain a campaign?
Oh yeah. I must have run, oh no, maybe it was Lost Caverns of Sojanth I ran as well.
Oh, that's actually a pretty thick module.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff. Did you make notes?
No, not really. This was a long time ago. I wasn't really good at it. I just ran it as it was written.
Yeah.
For the most
wrong
part.
with that.
For the most
There's
part.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The notes I make usually are, I would say this, but I won't do it. I would say write in your module, but I don't. If I want to write in the module, I print it off a PDF. And that's what I do. I mean, I just don't want to write in my books. I also put my name in them sometimes, but I won't scratch things out and stuff. I used to when I was younger. I had some modules I had marker in it that I actually wrote things down in. So nothing wrong with that. But I think I like to be able to reference that. I think also, I don't know if I have this in the notes. I would also, if there's a scene in the adventure where the character is going to be trying to get across a raging river. They're expected there's a hand rope to go across a raging river, to walk across a river that would sweep you away. And if you fail, then you sweep away. I would look up your game system rules for swimming. I mean, if special corner case rules come into play, and if you want to use them, I would say look them up before you run the adventure, or at least before you run that part, so you know how to adjudicate them. If it's important to you to stick to the rules, which most people, I would say most people want to be reasonably.
And I just remembered another of the modules. My favorite one to run, Rapanithuk. That definitely, it's massive, and that one really behooves you to read it, especially depending on which version you get. Because if you get like the initially released version, like I have, it was written up. I'm trying to remember whether it's for third edition or second edition, I believe, initially as third edition was coming out, or perhaps third edition as Pathfinder was coming out. I can't remember.
It was made for third. No, it was the little green edged booklets. So that's what you're talking about. Those were 3E. The original Rapanithuk was 3E.
3E. Yep. Well, they had some weird. I think that the original game was written for second edition, and that when they made it for third, they had some copy and paste errors in it.
I don't know. I think it might have been. Was it who did that? Was Goodman Games do that?
No. It was somebody else.
Necromancer Games.
Maybe. But there was old versions of stuff in the third edition, and I think it was, they changed the name of plate mail to like full plate and half plate. In third edition, it was just plate mail.
Right.
So you would get plate mail. I mean, it's minor quibbles, but they had a wand. This is why you need to read through it, because there are things in there you may not want in your game.
Right.
Like a fully charged wand of meteor swarm.
Wow.
50 charges of meteor swarm in a wand, which wands in third edition only went to fourth level spells.
Right.
So I think they made parts of it not knowing all of the third edition rules. So they
Well-
found that, oh, wands are of spells. So let's do this really crazy one, like 50 chart. I mean, you could,
Well,
as
you
a
know,
first level character, have that, and then you win every fight.
Monty Cook said there was no balance issue with wands of higher than 4th level.
Correct.
He said, but he said the cost would have been ridiculous.
Oh, sure. For a 9th level wand,
A wand,
holy
50,
crap.
a 50 charges a wand of meteor swarms, that would cost you $500,000 gold,
Yeah, probably at least.
and it would be worth it.
And then once somebody found out you had it, you'd be a marked man.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
would. Yeah, but you'd be like, bring it on. Were you in what army?
Yeah, but you had
I'll
to
kill
sleep.
that army too.
You have to sleep.
Yeah, you do. But
You
I
get
think
assassinated so fast.
I think the creator of that game had created Rapanathuk for his home game.
Yeah.
And had notes written up for 1st or 2nd edition. And then I think he goes, oh, I'm going to sell it. I think that's when I want to say it was Joseph Goodman, who eventually became Goodman's Games, but started with Necromancer, but I could be wrong. I always get intimidated when I think of those mega dungeons, like Rapanathuk or World's Largest Dungeon, or what's the one OS on?
Barrow Maze.
The Barrow Maze.
Barrow Maze.
Because, we talk about prepping that. How do you prep a dungeon with 22 levels and each level has 50 rooms? Because, especially Rapanathuk, that was very open-ended. You could have a 2nd level party that could find themselves down in an area that's way out of their league, right?
You could. You'd have to really try hard to go down as fast as you could, but yeah, there are ways to get it over your head really fast.
Well, I'm thinking and that doesn't bother me as much as a DM. So if I've got 370 rooms in this area, let's call them encounter areas, because you're in something a mega dungeon, a massive city that's been in ruins for 3,000 years, and you got tons of different factions, or even Temple of Elemental Evil, which is kind of a mini mega dungeon. I mean, it's nearly a mega dungeon.
Yeah.
And to say that you're ready for anything and where the players go, that can be a little intimidating. So I think you have to read it and have a good idea. And that's why I say multiple reads, not to master it. And you got to write down every monster. You should prepare for your session. When I make those cards or notes, make them for your session. And if the players go off the rails, let them go. If they go off and do their own thing, and then you rely, okay, I've read about this. Let me flip over here, take a 10-minute break, scan. Okay, so there's a mind flayer here. Oh, they're screwed. Oh well,
Mm-hmm.
They're 2nd level. I
It'll take about 5 minutes.
I gave them all the warnings I could. I
Yeah.
hit it. I had something heavy over it. They were determined to go down the well. Okay. Another thing I think DM should do, I think you need to study your NPCs and monster powers. So for the session, if I'm going to have a lich, I need to know what he does. And if he's 18th level magic user, you better do a little homework. I mean, as for a DM, and this is whether it's a module or not, but especially with a module, okay, you're going to fight a Sararak in this, 7th level of Rapanathuk. He's a 18th level necromancer lich. Like, okay, you better know how the spells work. You better have it, you better have it figured out. You better know what a lich does, know something about their phylactery. And I think it takes a little study.
Yeah.
If you run a simpler game where the stat blocks are simpler, that helps. But I mean, some creatures, no matter what system you run, there's complicated creatures. You better know what their little tricks and things are.
Yeah, especially a spellcaster. I mean, if you've got something like a lich or something that emulates being a spellcaster, like a beholder or a mind flayer, things that are unusual, have multiple powers, and you got to know how those things work.
I think when you're going to run, it helps if you know your group really well, because if you normally run a 4 to 6 hour session, I'll say a 6 hour session, and you know that your players get into the RP and they tend to be very cautious, then you're like, well, we're probably not going to get to the whole first level of the moat house. So I'm going to prepare 2/3 of it, eyeball the rest of it, then we should be good. I mean, my wife always laughs at me. I'm over prepared beyond belief. I mean, you had a whole dungeon level the other night in Mudsword, and we'll talk about that more in Mudsword. We didn't even get to, the meat of it. And but I think there's multiple reasons for that. We'll talk about that then.
Yeah.
But I think if you can, you get to know them. I don't think you want to stifle. You don't need to stifle player agency in a module. I mean, I think I've talked about this example once. I ran Rise of the Rune Lords, and we were in the fourth part. And basically, the party's main goal is to find out what these stone giants are doing, and they're building up an army. And you and Joe in particular was like, hey, man, we might end up fighting a big battle with stone giants. I think we should gather, go to different cities and towns nearby and build up defenses. And so Joe was, he was anticipating that there was going to be a big battle, which would have made sense. But the module was not designed that way.
Right.
And one of the things that I did is I kind of discouraged you from doing that. And I shouldn't have. I should have just let your players run with it. And now that means on your part, it's going to be a little more work because you're going to have to get a little more creative, but you can still use all the creatures. You can I could have used every one of them. I could have brought them all out in a war. I could have had every one of them. And you guys could have been fighting small units with my favorite bad guy in that unit.
Right.
I didn't even think of that. And that would have been cool. So you need to be open to the possibility the players may inspire you and take it down a road that it's not necessarily set to do. But again, a lot of people that run modules want to just do the module.
Right.
They don't want, and they have blinders on.
Mm-hmm,
And I've been like that in the past, where let's just do this adventure. And that's not bad. In fact, I think I told you afterwards that that was a cool idea, but that's not how it was planned. And Joe was like, okay, but it is a little railroady that I didn't let you guys explore that fully.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know, but
we'll forgive you this time.
This time. Yeah. So now here's something that I've always thought about. Early on, especially in D&D, I was very focused that if I was going to run a module, it had to be the right level. Players only second level, I can't run a 5th level module. Players are 19th level, I can't run a 2nd level module. I don't know if that's always true anymore. I can take a module that has a really cool story and I can crank down the foes, or I can change the actual bad guy to something more within your power range if I want you to fight it.
Sure.
And I think you have to be willing to do that kind of, if you really like the story and the adventure, use it no matter what level your characters are. Just dial back the deadliness of it.
You could. I think that there's probably limitations to that. You don't want to have probably a module designed for uber high level characters. And because you like the story, we're going to run it at 1st level because, well, you might. Okay, here's
be hard pressed though.
You'd be hard pressed to do it, especially considering those kinds of monsters probably don't have a 1st level variant or a low level variant. But if you plan on probably not adventuring past a certain level, that's where that idea gives you more options than just the published modules for those levels you already plan on going through.
Yeah.
And I know that sometimes you can run out of material if you're counting on modules to be like the meat or the building blocks of your campaign.
Mm-hmm.
You might have X amount of modules out there that you're interested in the levels that you're playing in. And you just never play the higher ones because you never get there. Or maybe you're just not interested in that level play.
Yeah. But something like
you can take some of those, if they're not too far out of your level range, and like you're saying, retool them for your group, for your table, so that you're never going to play characters that are over 8th level because you're old school and that's just the way you are.
Right.
Doesn't mean you can't use some of the higher level modules, but just pared down a bit.
Some are tougher, like Tomb of Horrors. You could have 7th or 8th level characters go through that, but how you have 15th level characters go through it, it'd be tough. But 8th level characters have probably dead no matter what. So
considering what they're going to be saving at, sure.
Yeah, all their saving throws and facing all the death traps that are in there. But I think in most adventures where you have, even something really high level, like say, let me think of something like that I ran before. I don't know. Brain cramp. Oh, against the giants. There you go. The series where you start out fighting hill giants, then you fight frost giants, then fire giants, or whatever it is. There's no reason it couldn't be goblins orcs, and then the final are, ogres. I mean, you could lower that down, and
Mhm.
instead of it be secretly the drow, it could be secretly some evil diplomat who wants to destabilize a region. It doesn't have to be the drow. So you could lower it down so third, fourth, fifth level characters could handle it rather than eighth, ninth, 10th level characters. So you can do that and keep but that's work. I mean, doing that is a lot of work. So you have to decide, if you really want to do it, because it won't just be the fact, okay, now replace the hill giants with goblins, but then you forgot about room 7A where there is a young white dragon. Now it's got to be a young lion that the
Right.
goblins managed to capture. Right. But you got to make sure you do that. So there's a lot of work. Have you ever run an adventure for a different system? Meaning like take a Deadlands adventure and run it as a D&D adventure.
Oh, I don't think I've ever done anything like that. No.
Yeah, that's a bigger challenge. The most I think that I've ever done was I think I've taken a D&D adventure and written as a Savage Worlds fantasy adventure. I've done that before.
Yeah. That's a bit of an easier. It's a bit of if you're staying in the same genre,
yeah.
It's easier to port any D&D module over to Savage Worlds. I don't think that would be hard at all.
No. Now, if you want to port something like 13th Age over to D&D or D&D over to 13th Age doesn't tend to have as many encounters. I mean, at least by initial design. So it could be tougher. But doesn't mean you couldn't do it.
Right.
Completely different genre. I'm thinking what I've run recently. I ran was it Devil's Night in Deadlands last year, and it's a pretty cool little adventure. And I could easily port that into a D&D adventure. Just change things, change the villain, just make it a fantasy setting and keep the villain the same. It's a summon demon. So.
Oh yeah, that'd be easy.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that bad. I've talked a little about weaving the modules together. I think for me, that's not always a concern. I mean, have you played a campaign where it was just disjointed modules? So this week we're doing Hamlet. Next week we're going to do, I don't know, the first Sandpoint adventure. Then we're going to do keeping the same characters and they're leveling up. Then we're going to do Against the Giants.
Well, we kind of did that with Elysium. You never knew what you were going to be doing the next time you played.
Right.
So, yeah.
But I mean, have you done it with modules? Have you actually run through the whole module, kept the same character, then run through the next module and not worried about how you got from point A to point B? Point A being the end of the first module, point B being the beginning of the second?
A little. There's been a little of that where we play through modules. We don't really care about the in between parts. Right.
Yeah.
I've done that. It's not, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with having town stuff where the town stuff is generally used as the connective tissue between modules, or even if it's not modules, it's connective tissue between scenarios. If you're just running your stuff off the cuff or you've prepared your own thing, town stuff is usually the in between.
Yeah, and so some people will keep that very generic. Mm-hmm. We go to the local temple and get healed. Okay.
Right.
And you may or may not even talk about the god's name. Who cares?
Right.
And but for me, if I'm going to run modules, I want if I'm going to run an adventure that's based in Sanctuary, the city from Thieves World, and I have an actual module, and I'm going to translate that to D&D, then I want to use all their language, all their things, all their stuff. I mean, I did that in the Savage World game we were playing. I guess just for me, I like that connective tissue to be more, it makes the game, I don't want to say feel better, but kind of, I feel more immersed when I know all the stuff.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine with some level of immersion. Yep. With any, it depends. You can have 5 different people at the table, all of them having a different level of immersion at the same game.
Oh, sure.
Right. So
I'm talking me.
You. So having or not having the town stuff be explicit doesn't make it less immersive for me, because I still imagine it one way or the other. So even if I imagine several different scenarios that could have been what got you from A to B, I still think about that stuff. And that helps me to, depending on the situation, it would help him, the character I'm running, either justify being where he's at, or what he might have most recently bought at a shop. So, and that kind of stuff. So it's more for me, and I can actually have fun doing the town stuff for a limited amount. Sometimes it can get a little boring depending on how it goes. I don't want to have an entire session where we're going to spend this entire session figuring out how to buy leather armor.
Right.
I mean, if it's going to be an hour session, okay. But if it's going to be what we would like it to be, 6 to 8 hours,
Right.
you're not going to spend that much time at some imaginary shop. That just doesn't make any sense.
I mean, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. Our group would not like that.
No.
I don't think. What about the idea? And this is still on the topic of modules. So, could you imagine? I think I could easily, especially if you said you're okay with it, and other people are too. I could run Village of Hamlet as a self-contained adventure, and then you could take over and run. What's one
Temple.
of them?
You run Temple.
You can run Temple. Someone else could then run against the Giants, and then someone else could run Isle of the Ape. And these are all very, if we set it up where if we took the modules, we all had the actual modules in front of us, and we could say, oh, look, this is levels 1 to 3. And we have two modules that are levels 1 to 3, 2 or 3 modules that are 4 to 6, 2 or 3 modules that are, 6 to 8, and say, everybody pick one that you want to run, and let's cover the gamut. You know what I'm saying? And you could have different people at the table run different modules and not to worry too much about, other than we'll have a base town and we'll let things be what they are.
Right. I think that could be real fun.
That could be a fun way to do it.
I think stuff like that depends on the makeup at the table of people,
Yep.
because even though to some people that might sound boring because you already know what's going to happen, depending on who's at the table, your chemistry will make it fun or not fun, depending on whether you have chemistry or not when you're playing. So if you have a group of people who have a good rapport with each other and can riff off of each other, it largely doesn't matter the details of whether it's a module, whether they're connected necessarily, whether it's the DM's creation or not, whether they switch DMing duties between them, doesn't matter either, because you're all the same people and you all can riff off of each other. Whether this week Randy's the DM, 2 or 3 weeks down the road Pat's the DM or whatever. Right. I think if you have a good rapport, you can make that as fun or more fun than just slogging it out week after week with the same DM. Though they could still be fine too.
Yeah, I think, and when you mentioned, well, you would know what's coming. Did you say are you talking like you would know what module is coming? Is that why it would be?
Right. Some people might say, well, we already know what the modules are, so it might not be as fun for them because they already know potentially what's coming.
All they would know is the titles, unless someone's read them already.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, if someone says against the Giants, I can't picture in detail exact scenes.
Correct.
But I would happily play it against the Giants series of adventures, because I know I have forgotten a bunch of it.
Sure.
So
all you really know is that there's a bunch of giants in it.
Right. Right. Oh, well, I do remember one thing. There is a frost brand somewhere.
Correct.
So we would be tearing open beds looking for it. And trying to find
a pillar. It's almost big enough to put a sword in it. Let's chop it down. See what happens.
I bet they could fit a sword right in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And back to Mr. Anal Prepper. This is one of the last things I would probably do. I would say I'm big on photocopying things now. Now that I'm older, I got access to a printer. I would photocopy art that I want to show to my players, as well as NPC and monster pics that are in the module. Heck, you might even photocopy the whole dang module if it's small enough, and you got a little PDF, you can print it off, then you can mark it up, and it makes all the other parts even easier. You want your maps, especially maybe you want to take the main map and then you want to make a player map. But sometimes the old modules used to have player map and DM map. The DM map would have all the secrets on it. The player map would have the things that everybody in common in the world would know about the region. I think a lot of those pictures and those things that I would cut out and print, I wouldn't cut out a module. It's crazy, but I'd print it off. It helps the scene be more evocative. I mean, I can describe, you see a slavering creature whose jaws hang down, past its shoulders and blah, blah, blah. And then I go, it looks a lot like this. And I hold a picture up and you guys are like, oh, that's sick.
Right.
and that's cool. I guess some DMs can probably paint a cooler scene, but usually, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's true. So we could speed it up by saying, this is what you see.
Right.
And you don't have to tell them, oh, it's a troll. Maybe this is what you see. So you make your own decision.
Yeah. If you take your, this is what you see exclusively from, say, the monster manual for D&D, that will be a dead giveaway. However, if you get creative and go out on the interwebs, you can find alternate versions, or you can just find a monster that looks cool.
Yep.
And just call it a troll.
Correct.
It doesn't necessarily have to be precisely the description in the monster manual, as long as it plays the same.
Yeah. I do think when it comes to running the module, I would be careful about, and it's just because I'm an experienced GM. You see me run a lot. You don't see me read from a module very often.
No. In fact, reading the boxed text was kind of a slur back in the day.
Yeah,
oh, he's reading the box text. We don't like that.
But I did that for a long time. You guys didn't complain.
No,
you got a little tired sometimes, but and I would hold you responsible for it.
Right.
If I read the box text, oh, we didn't see the sconce. I said the sconce.
It's right here.
It's right here. I'm sorry you didn't see it.
I quote.
And that was, or the trap. And I quote from here. And guess what, trap? Yes, you fall in the lava. Roll up new characters.
Right.
So that's how we used to play back in the day.
Right.
But I would say definitely have that. I would have the module handy, but honestly, I'm pretty much, if I prep the way I like it, I don't need it.
Right.
I'm ready to go. Maybe just the map.
A little mnemonic refresher now and again to look at it. That's about it.
Once I can find that one adventure here, it should be pretty close. Something about the moon. Yeah, here it was. That's right, because there's that succubus we talked about last time. But another thing I've learned to do that I really enjoy when it comes to modules is I like to print off the map. Like this was the temple. See that little star there? That's where that giant fire elemental.
Yes.
And what I do is I just write in the rooms. I'll say, here's the high priest, two of the lower ones, the lesser priest. There's the Immazaria statue that looks Eidolon of the statue. And so, and I find that helps here. That's a good mnemonic aid. Oh yeah, there's 6 schools here, So yeah, I think that's a good thing to do.
Right.
Again, I guess the thing when running it, I would just say, know how much you need to have. We've talked about that. Have it in front of you. If you have a GM screen, that's great. If not, that's fine. And just make sure you have spent a little time reading it. I would say a lot of time reading it, but that's just me.
I like the writing things. It helps reading it and then writing it. Often helps the memory, like you're saying. Even redrawing. You don't if you're comfortable with drawing, that might even help you remember the layout, just like writing different things that key NPCs and monsters will help you remember those. Just tracing over the maps will help you remember that, if that's important to you. Some people just like it to play off the cuff, but this kind of stuff is not, like we're saying here, nuts and bolts. You don't, and we're not necessarily advocating running a module where you crack it open for the first time at the table with your players and say, let's go. I know some people are like that, and maybe that you press for time and you guys don't mind at your table to play that way. That's fine. Right. There's all kinds of different ways to play the game.
It might work for you. Yeah. I wince because I can't imagine that being, I would not be I would not feel like I was prepared. I would not. But then again, I guess part of it's not just me being anal. I'm a teacher. I feel I need to be prepared every day for when I'm in front of the class. And so I'm pretty anal about being ready.
Right.
And for you guys, I mean, you're my friends, but it's not just you, it's me. I want to be ready. I want to present the best version of the adventure that I can.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me. It's okay.
Right. But there's lots of different ways to run your campaign, and there's lots of different ways to run a module. You can play it rote just as is. You can pick and choose the things out of it you like. You can just use the maps. Some people just mine modules for maps, especially the smaller ones.
Or for monsters, unique encounters. You can mine an adventure. This one room is really cool when you fight this one beast this way. I'm using that. I'm pulling that out, yoinking it, and put it in my own adventure.
Right.
Some modules are harder. Yep.
You could restructure a module like Rapanathuk.
Oh, yeah.
Is a traditional dungeon with multiple layers, but you really could restructure that to be spread across a countryside. There would be no reason why you couldn't do that the way it's written up. It'd be very easy to do. You would have to figure out how to get from one place to another differently, but apart from that, it would be really easy to do, especially if you took chunks. Maybe not every layer, but definitely you could take a chunk and put it here, a chunk and put it somewhere else geographically, and then figure out how to get the players from one to the other. It shouldn't be too hard.
Oh, it'd be super. I mean, top of my head, the mages that built it put little portals, and they put chunks of the chunks. Maybe Orcus wanted to have chunks of this place in different places all around the world. Right. Maybe key spots for some big ritual they're all planning to perform. And so your job is to thwart every little piece. So you come to the portal, you're like, oh yeah, we're about to go to another level of Rapanathuk. Are we ready? Let's go back to town, rest up, come back, poof, and then you land somewhere else. And maybe when you land there, there's not a portal behind you. So that means you come to a new chunk, you either go to a portal, the portal to the next chunk 3, or you find an exit and see where in the world you are.
Right.
That would be fun.
Yeah. And cool. You could do like, since Orcus, and it's no secret.
Right.
So it's not a spoiler. Orcus is the main focus is a very big element in Rapanathuk.
Yeah.
It could be that a group of heroes went through Rapanathuk and nearly defeated Orcus. So he decided to reconfigure it.
Right.
And he just, he's extremely powerful. So it wouldn't be that out of line to suggest that he could do that.
You just get, like I said, actually, I think, you know what, Joe?
You could even have it configured you could have the different chunks of it configured into kind of a pentagram.
Yep. Yeah.
Or some other either that or some other icon.
Oh, dude, I love that idea. We may have just come up with a way for Randy to run a mega dungeon the way he's always feared it. So I can break it into pieces, and you could prepare that one piece. And when you get done, the players will be like, oh yeah, that's as far as we can go, because it's either the portal, we got to rest, and we all have less than 5 hit points. We're going to town.
Right.
And then Randy's like, woohoo. And that's managed to railroad them without them feeling like they're on the rails, which you're really not. You get to choose. I mean, you choose not to do it.
It's really big. What you've done is taken what could be a very narrowly defined railroad track, and made the rails very big, or at least made your bumpers on the sides go way out. So you have a very broad way of doing things. And
if a group of adventurers nearly defeat him with this chunked up dungeon, he goes, I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to make it interplanar.
Right.
Each chunk will be on different worlds. And if you really I used to love the idea of Planescape and travel in different worlds, not just the outer planes, but going from Dragonlance to Dark Sun to Forgotten Realms. You could have pieces of Rapanathuk and all the different planes of existence and all the campaign settings. And then players could hop out and they'd be like, why are there dragon men running around? They're draconians. You're in Dragonlance. Whoa. And your players might be like, I dig this place. And they might stay there for several levels or forever. who knows? They might like it better than Rapanathuk.
And you could make Sigil a level of the dungeon that you could defeat. That would be awesome.
Yes, you could defeat, and you could become the man of pain.
Oh no, or just defeat Sigil and let it rot. That would be great. Destroy it.
I would not allow that. I would hose you before you do that. And I made a last comment too. I was like, some modules are harder to run than homebrewed adventures because they'll have so much in them. They can be harder on a couple of levels. For me, when I read a really complex module, I'm like, oh my God, that's so much to remember. And you've heard me say, oh, I ran that scene completely wrong. I forgot there was a hidden assassin in the door. He should have jumped out and stabbed you. And you guys wouldn't have killed that wizard so fast. And, Joe's like, sucks to be you. And I'm like, yeah,
pretty much.
Oh, well. But yeah. And so I think they can be tougher. They can be complex and lots of inner working parts. Whereas a homebrew, you might be able to write it in such a way. I mean, it is easier to remember homebrew stuff because it's all coming from your head and you can fully design it. That does help.
You could still forget stuff. It would all depend on how long before you sat at the table, how long before you're sitting at the table right now running it, and when you first designed it. So if you designed it a long time ago, you could easily forget details.
And even when you're running modules, and I'm going to talk about this in the Mudsword segment, you can also freewheel it. Those that are more ad lib DMs, I did a lot of ad libbing last Saturday. There were things that you guys were talking about, and I said, that's totally cool. I'm doing that. I mean, you guys weren't saying the exact thing. You just inspired me. I said, oh, that's what's happening. And, I was ad libbing a lot of things, and I made notes and sent myself an email because I said, I want to make some changes to the world because of this, because I want this to be true, and, or at least I'm going to act like it's true. We'll see if it actually is later on. But I think you got to be willing, and that'll let the player agency, give them players enough agency to feel like they can do something. Even if you're running a module, you don't have to put them on the rails. Not exactly. All right. So I think we've beat the module idea, adventure, pre-published adventure kind of topic to death.
I wonder if we could, as a part 2 to modules, grab one.
Oh, sure.
And then do a step. I don't know how people would like that. Maybe we can just, if you would like us to do that, let us know in either the video comments, or do a call in or email. Because I just thought maybe folks would like a kind of a, hold on, I dropped my pen. Would like a walkthrough of how.
I got one we could do that wouldn't take that long. Beneath the Temple of the Moon by Martin Teasdale. This is from that adventure anthology. That's the one that you ran. That's the one you played in Saturday.
Oh, okay.
Notice that has nothing to do the way I did it. Now, I completely rejiggered this thing, but we could talk about it. It's a pretty basic module, 4 or 5 pages. And then we could talk about how I made things to fit the campaign setting. Or we could just I could take a module that I prepared before and talk about what I did to do it, or what you would do to do it, or what you would do to prepare it. And we could even compare and contrast. That's possible. Right. Step by step with an example. Yeah, we'll see what people think. If they think that'd be cool to hear, we'll be glad to do it. So.
Yes. And if there are subsequent episodes in this vein, are going to be one of them is going to be kind of off the cuff or random.
Yeah.
Right. Where there are lots of, especially in the early books, tables.
Right.
You have lots of tables where you can just sit down and have a very bare structure to start out with, and let your players go free, and then just roll on tables.
Is that what they call procedural?
That's procedural. It's kind of sandbox. It has different names.
Right. Okay.
The one true way is the way other people talk about it.
Oh, right. Oh, that'd be good. We should learn that. We've been playing long enough. We should finally learn that one true way.
Right.
Hey, so when you publish this, call it part 1. I didn't put that on the title.
Okay.
Because we may or not do a part 2, but it's at least part 1 of our nuts and bolts series, nuts and bolts of a campaign. You think I think that's enough for now, don't you?
I think so.
All right. All right, why don't we shift on over to Like It, Love It, or Leave It. It's a segment where we share a couple of words. We've got a little bit wordy as we went along, but I give a word to Joe or a topic, and he tells me whether he likes it, loves it, or wants to leave it. And Joe does the same for me. Me or you, bud? You want to go first, or me go first?
I'll go first.
Hit me.
Farmers markets.
Farmers markets. Don't get to go. I don't go to too many, but when I do, I very much love it because I think I get some of the best produce. Oh, what comes up in my shoulder here? That's our big long cat Willow. Yeah, I would say I love it. I love the fresh produce. I love the chance to look around and see what the farmers have done in the local area. I tend to get the best fruit and veggies there. Even if it costs a little bit more, it's worth it. Yeah, love it.
Good deal.
Yep.
I agree. Dune, the novel.
Okay. Love it. But this guy right here is the one who read it back when we were in high school. He read all of them. I read just the first one, started to read the second one, got a little tired. I did recently buy a special edition leather-bound version of it. I got a good deal on eBay, and I want to reread it. I absolutely loved it. I've said this before, I think Herbert did for science fiction pretty much what Tolkien did for fantasy. I thought as a world-building exercise in a sci-fi setting, that is super tough to beat. I don't know what's the science fiction books, maybe Asimov's world. Did Asimov have a single world, or was it different worlds? The robot series.
I don't know if I don't think all of his novels were in the same universe, but perhaps the majority. Definitely all the robot ones.
But I mean, to me, for my money, it was just a great book. I didn't read it for years because Joe had told me about it. It wasn't just that. I thought, I wasn't much of a reader. And I was intimidated by the fact that there was a glossary in the back of the book. I was like, crap, I don't want to have to study vocabulary to read a stupid book.
Well,
the older I get,
I really wish a lot of the D&D books had glossaries, especially at the very least one with a pronunciation guide, because sometimes there are words that it says 57 letters but only one vowel.
Yeah,
so stupid.
Was it
whatever that is.
Yeah,
Stupid.
dumb thing. Yeah, it's like they just threw letters together. But yeah, Dune's another love it, dude. Yeah, I like Dune. It's awesome. Great sci-fi.
Spell points.
Like it. I want to love it. I think it's on the surface, it sounds like the best way to do magic. How simple. Cast spells, take off points. Cast spells, take off points. It's great because it's easy to keep track of, especially for a new person. I would think it'd be a really easy way to keep track of things. And it could imitate my magic is dwindling. My magic is dwindling. But at no point, well, I've cast all my first level spells. Can't cast any more of those. Cast all my third level spells. I can't cast any more of those. Can you cast fourth? Yeah, I got 2 of those. It's like, okay, that's weird. I like it because it's like, and that's where I think video games have got it right. You have the magic meter, and it just goes down as you use your magic. And I like the idea. I've yet to see it work really well in any game. Savage Worlds is decent, but honestly, after playing that short stint of our fantasy game, Wizards seemed really boss in that game.
They have to spam. They end up having to spam the same spells over and over again. But yeah,
but they never. I mean, the way they let them recover spells now, it just seems way too easy. I've yet to find a game that does it well. So, but yeah, I like it. That's why I only like it. I love the idea, but I usually hate how it's implemented. It's either Wizards too weak or way too powerful.
Mostly way too powerful.
Like the Psionicist in 3.5. He was ridiculous. 400 something points. Get out of here. Yeah, so
the 3.0 version was kind of wimpy.
But you know what? I prefer that to 3.5 because I thought the Psionic should have been about on par with the Sorcerer, and he was in 3rd edition, 3E. I didn't like him outstripping the Sorcerer. He was up. The Psionicist was up there with the Wizard and the Cleric.
Oh, farther past, actually.
Now, I think in the end, at the high ends, the wizard had some spells the psionists could not touch.
That's true. That's true.
But as far as utility, dude, he was a boss. Yeah. Okay, my turn. Debate.
Love it. It's one way to arrive at truth, or at least get in the realm.
Yeah. Good debate. Iron sharpens iron.
Right.
Taxes.
Hate. Leave it.
Leave it.
Leave it.
We shouldn't be taxed for a single thing.
Not by the feds.
What about the state?
Maybe. It depends on the state constitution, but I don't think.
How does the federal government function then?
It used to function without taxes way back in the day, before we got involved in war, and more war.
Yeah.
So
I heard today that currently gas prices have on every gallon of gas, the federal government gets 30 cents. The gas companies get 3. That's dog poop, man.
What a
That's
scam.
a pile of dog poop. Yeah, it is. It is dog poop. I don't know if that's true or not.
That still comes from us.
Oh yeah, they get my 30 cents. That's right.
Yeah.
And they this is from a friend. I can't confirm, neither confirm nor deny this rumor, but it's probably true. And he said, since we live in the Republic of Michigan, the state probably gets 20 cents too.
Yeah, probably. The Republic. This is the dictatorship more closely.
The People's
Republic. Yeah. That's the proper way to say it. No, the toothpaste is out of the tube, though. The way the world is structured now, should the U.S. recede, there's no telling what would happen, especially if they did it really fast. I mean, but I think I would still be for it.
Oh, you mean like as
far as bringing troops home, not having how many 100 or 200 or 300 different bases? I can't remember how many bases we have out there.
Thousands and thousands of troops. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't think we need any of them out there. Really,
I don't think we should be babysitting the world.
No.
But anyway, off topic.
Last
one, gaming related.
That's all. That's related to taxes.
Taxation is theft. Would you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty close to that. I mean.
Okay. Definitely leave it. Not interested.
No, not interested at all.
Okay. I'm sure folks will, what about this? What about that? Man, we're not going down that road.
Yeah. The way the government used to be funded was with bonds and with a kind of tax, which was it levies?
Yep.
Right. So duties and levies. So when foreign countries would ship their goods here, then the federal government could tax that.
Right.
Essentially.
And you're okay with it. Yeah. And the thing is, I think we as people rely on mommy or daddy government to do stuff for us. We don't want true freedom to have to deal with our own crap.
It's very cushy.
Yeah, it's very cushy. Let someone else take care of you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, boy, we're getting to political. Let's get out of here. Last one, DM prep.
Like it?
Yeah. You do like it? From what perspective? You like when a DM does it, or if you're a DM and you do it, you enjoy doing it?
How about this?
Okay.
I love the result of the appropriate amount of prep, such that when I sit down as a player at the table, the game runs smoothly. The DM isn't going a lot. It's just going to happen now and again. You have brain fart or whatever, but as long as the game runs pretty smooth, and I can't really tell that it could be that the fellow's running everything completely off the cuff. And if I can't really tell, then I don't really care. If I'm having fun as a result of how well
if he
the
runs
DM
off the cuff, he's still, if he's doing a good job, he must have prepared as much as he needed to.
Right. So, and then as a DM myself, prep, I would say like it at most, because it can be work, which is why I try to minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah. I'm definitely I actually enjoy it. It's like the mini game for me.
Yeah, you're a control freak though.
Yes.
A little. Very, very
Everything
little.
must be on. Fact. All right, cool. All right, last segment here. I'm going to play in the mud a little bit, where we talk about our progress on our D&D clone that we're trying to rip off from TSR/WotC/whoever.
At the very least, it'll be hours. Whether we can call it D&D or not, it'll be hours.
Overview before we get into that. Last session, we played Mud Sword last week. What did you think in general?
I had fun. This is not a knock. It was a bit of a, there was a bit of a anticlimactic end, but looking back, there was only really a couple of different ways that was going to go anyway, especially considering the makeup of the group. Most of the group was not wanting what you were giving.
Right. They did not want to face the challenge that I presented, seemed too daunting. And by that, I mean, and Joe's being nice, I think I painted a picture. They're only 3rd level, and they thought it was like a 10th or 12th level challenge. I mean, to put it in level things, you guys are like,
Right,
holy
right.
crap, there's some elemental god that's free down in the dungeon, and he wants our 3rd level characters to go down there and put it back in the box.
So
what is he thinking?
A little bit of metagaming probably ruined it. And the little bit of metagaming was, is this the point where we are wise and step away?
Right.
Because it seems like we're getting telegraphed that this is really powerful and maybe we're not supposed to. Or are we looking too much into it? And should we just, put our head down and trudge on?
Well, and I'd made a mistake. I gave you a patron who I accurately portrayed as a powerful wizard, and he was. And he was just looking for soil samples.
Right.
There had been a massive forest fire, and he wanted soil samples because he was suspicious that it was not, it had been made by some magical means. He wants to see the soil. He's got a couple of plans, and he wants to try to figure out what it is. And he's known as a kind of heroic guy from, many years back. And you guys went back to him after you discovered, oh my God, these things have happened. And you sent him a quote unquote a raven, and you decided to wait for his response. And it was late. And I don't know why I did this. This is a mistake that I made. I said, okay, he agrees. He'll come help you. And when he did, I'm like, he's going to wipe the floor. He's 12th level. I did not have an elemental god at the bottom. I had a creature who would have been very dangerous, who was posing as an elemental goddess. And she was not. She had just fooled these idiots and charmed them and, used suggestion on them, hypnotized them. And she was in no way able to handle this wizard. I mean, he literally could have run through the whole adventure by himself, because he had spells. Every spell he cast would annihilate whatever he was attacking. Save or not, wouldn't have mattered. And he helped them. And so the group they got a few gold coins, but they didn't get a whole lot out of that adventure. And they lost out on some experience. And I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming myself, because Joe's first response when I said, you get, these guards come back with a response, he's like, oh, let me guess. He's busy. And I guess I was like, oh, and that'd be kind of stupid if he was busy. And it's like, no, he shows up. And I was like, I really should have just said, yeah, he's busy. Because the dumb thing was, I had told the characters this wizard was building a tower in their hometown. He was sending all these adventurers out, and he was hiring people. He was spending lots of money. He couldn't even give you guys a lot of money for what you were doing. And I should have said, yeah, he's busy. He said, I paid you the 50 gold, or I promised you a potion. I expect you to do it, handle it. And I think Joe was expecting me to say that. And he wouldn't have been like, oh, it's crap. He'd have been like, nah, that's what I expected. Let's go. And I didn't, and it kind of ruined it. Now, to be fair, we had like a half hour before we'd have to stop. I was winding down at 10:30 at night. And so it ended it, but I wish I hadn't, because it ruined a whole quote unquote level of the dungeon that you guys could have explored next time. So that's all right. I mean, that was a mistake even, and I consider myself a very experienced DM, but I felt bad for a couple of days. I was like, man, believe it or not, I actually started questioning. I was like, Randy, are you sure you still want to play D&D? I can be my worst critic. I was like,
yeah.
oh my God. I was like, that was horrible. You didn't, that was not fun at all. And it was, we had a great time up till then. And it was near the end anyway. We'd have never gotten through that. If you guys had said, yeah, we're going to do it, I'd have said, well, let's do it next time. Because there was 5 or 6 encounters and you never would have made it through until 1 o'clock in the morning. We weren't staying that late. At least I didn't think we were. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was just mistakes that I thought I made. It kind of bothered me, but I'm over it now. You notice that post I said was, I'm going to get good.
That actually is what we should do. Get good.
What?
Just get good. We shouldn't worry about,
Right.
too much. I mean, you're like, I can understand saying, I did that wrong. I'm just not going to do that again. That's probably as much mental energy you should spend on it.
Yeah. And I should do a little, what's it called? A prologue next time where he comes to you guys and goes, don't call me, I'll call you.
Right.
And you'd be like, all right, check. But hey, we did have a thief level up. We used my new experience point tables. We're using different experience point tables. You would notice that by the time you get to 4th, he's going to be what, 5th or 6th, right?
Something like that.
Joe loves that. Joe's playing a wizard. But I do have, that was kind of cool. We went to actual numbers. We'll see how that works. I think my numbers are going to play the way I want. I don't like the 50,000 experience points and you got to take 97 adventures to go from level 7 to level 8. 2 or 3 adventures should be plenty to level up, in my opinion. What do you think?
Depends on what you mean by adventure.
Oh, I mean a full blown, like had you run that whole adventure, that would have been one adventure.
2 or 3 evenings of play?
No, I mean a full adventure. I mean, like, so
it could take it.
If your adventure is to clear out the moat house, it may take you 4 sessions, but you'll clear it out. The next adventure is to find the dragon and kill it. That may be 1 session one time. Maybe that's an adventure. Right. But to me, I just, and part of that's because
I think I'm okay with that at low, maybe.
You want it to slow down at higher levels?
Yeah. I think I don't think you necessarily, I think you can gear it depending on the group. But if you're going to have a standard table of experience points for each character class, which is, I think that's the better way to go.
I do too.
I think, well, you just have to set out what your, as a design expectation, what you would like it to be. If you want it to be fairly rapid, then you make it that.
I think it will be rapid initially. I think we talked about, currently right now, our design is level 1. You're level 1 to start. You have an adventure, not just a session. You have an adventure, you complete it, you're level 2. You have an adventure, you complete it, you're level 3. And I believe I heard Eric Tinkar when he did Swords and Wizardry Light. That was how he did levels, or something close to that. And then starting at level 3, we put you on the adventure experience point chart.
And a lot of that stuff can be jimmied by the DM. So whatever, if you leave the terms loose, then you don't really have to worry about a lot of complaints, because one adventure could be a session to one group of people, but it could be 10 to another group of people.
Yep.
So, and the DM and the people at the table can just tailor it that way. And instead of being too heavy handed on
what's an adventure and
what is in it. Yeah. You'll leave it up to the DM and mainly the DM.
Yeah. On a different note, I had a little, I'm not sure I like the way we did spellcasting. I didn't like, you can't move. What do you think? So we have the declare action, and we tried a Savage Worlds cards that still, I thought was okay. I agree. It's not perfect, but it's fine. But Wizards casters can't move. I don't know.
It's old school for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some mixed opinions on it too, because once you declare your spell casting, wherever you happen to be at, you're stuck there.
Yes. I think I would like for the next session to try it as like, now this won't be very consistent within the narrative. It'll be weird. So you can move and cast a spell. You can cast a spell and then move, make a move action. But if you don't get initiative, if someone attacks you, if that's your plan, you tell me I'm going to move here and cast a spell. Your spell is disrupted, whether you're hit while we can think, well, I was moving and I got hit. Doesn't matter. That threw your concentration off. You can't cast a spell.
Yeah, you can say, you could always say that even though you're moving there and then casting, you're still the whole round up until the spell goes off is part of spell casting, even the movement part, because you probably are concentrating. Yeah,
you're thinking of, I mean, in your head is, okay, crap, I got to get over there if I can cast this spell. When you get in position, oh crap, it's going to make a cone, so I don't want to get the cleric in this. Let me move over here, and then, but you're thinking about that, and someone boom hits you with an arrow. You're like, oh crap, and I'm just going to say, you're stunned, and you don't, because I'm not sure I want the wizard. I'm not convinced yet I want the wizard to lose his spell. I just want him to lose his action, because the truth I've found, if you don't get to act in a turn, that can be devastating in a critical situation.
Sure.
And if somebody has, they got some archer up on a raised platform, focusing fire on you, and he says, I'm gonna hold my action. I'm gonna shoot that wizard every time. I'm just shooting at him. I'm gonna make his life miserable. I don't want him casting spells. Even if you don't get your spells ruined, that sucks. Like, somebody get that guy. He is knocking the crap out of me. Even a little halfling throwing stones doing 1 point of damage. So what? You don't get to cast spells. That sucks.
It does.
Yeah. So, yeah. What did you think about with the card initiative? What did you think about my little, and it was an off the cuff plan. I just said 16 or higher ability score, you get 2 cards. What'd you think?
It's okay. I'm used to the card initiative from Savage Worlds. I still prefer the dice, but
do you?
It's personal preference.
Okay. It's not like, oh, I think this is so much better. You don't have you just, I like it. You like the dice in your hands. You like rolling.
What I think is important is the declaring.
Yes.
And the individual, and then redoing initiative every round, because that keeps it dynamic.
It does.
So there are some people who prefer roll once and you just cycle. I think that's boring, but everybody's got their opinions.
Well, and if you, but now that way, if we do that, roll once and you cycle, that archer that goes just before your wizard will pin you down every single round. Right. You will never get a spell off.
And conversely, if you win initiative once, that archer's never going to be able to pin you down.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to do it.
Yeah. If the whole plan is you got a crafty bandit guy, and he's like, look, I've faced off wizards before. We've got to keep them from casting those spells. John, get up there in the corner. If they have any wizards, you look out for the pointy hat guy and you pin cushion that dude.
Right.
And so, because that's what a smart bandit guy would do.
Sure.
Yeah.
The only way to counter that would be if we had a ready type thing.
Right.
Which I don't want to complicate things very much.
No,
Want to keep the game, the play at the table simple, or simple.
Dynamic round by round initiative. We're absolutely in 100% agreement.
Yeah.
Card or dice. If you were DMing, you wanted to use dice, it'd make no difference. I just feel like I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure what I feel about it yet. Right. I did enjoy it, but I've always liked that part of Savage Worlds. So, any other thoughts you had about Mudsword from playing the last session? I always like post-session reports, but anything crossed your mind you wanted to mention? Or
we need to have to decide on whether we're going to go with the turn language, the round and turn language, or if we're going to go with just rounds. Because to me, a turn being 10 rounds, I'd rather just have rejigger the spell durations in minutes. Right. And then, or rounds or minutes. Right. And then not worry about turns, because I think it's I think it's an extra bit of jargon that's not necessary.
It's hard to break the habit of talking, and it's always in my mind. I know it's not true because I had to double check it. You were right. A turn was 10 minutes, and a round was and
1 minute.
Is it? Because in some games, even like I think in Basic Fantasy, around 6 seconds,
right?
Like in 3E.
Right.
So I think we need to decide. I think we should know how long a round is time wise, and then we could just say this spell lasts 40 rounds instead of 4 turns, or 52 turns, or 52. And forget it's going to be hard to fight off me using the word turns. And I've always, in my mind, I've had it 10 rounds a turn, 10 rounds a turn. It's not always been that, but for some reason that's stuck since 3rd edition. So I'm going to have to break myself of that habit. And I'm with you. I think we need to make a decision. I have it written. If you look at the rules, the current rules iteration, I have a 6-second round, and a turn is 10 rounds. So we need to change that and adjust it, because I think that's a good idea. I think
I'm fine with 6-second rounds.
Yeah.
And having some spells last in rounds, but
some spells hours,
some spells
minutes.
Yeah, just use regular time units instead of, except for the really short ones, a number of rounds, because sometimes it's going to be just a round per level, and then it'll end up being one fight.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Is that all you got, brother?
As far as Mud Sword, no. I got I expanded Dispel Magic or Detect Magic a bit, because we talked about it in the last session, so that as an additional potential change, we roll Analyze, which is the rules compendium version of Identify, which is what it was called in 3rd edition, or maybe even 1st edition too. If there is even an Identify, I have to go back. I can't remember.
There was in 1st and 2nd, I think.
Right. So, but it was called Analyze in the rules compendium, and it may have been also in the BECME individual books. So, rolling that into Detect Magic, such that, let's say you have Detect Magic prepared or memorized, you can cast Detect Magic as a ritual, and it becomes Analyze or Identify, if we go with the way Identify works instead. Right. So the whole idea of this restructuring of the spells will potentially change the power of the magic user, but it definitely will increase it will give the magic user some flexibility, potential flexibility.
Which currently is good, because we only have 4 classes, so it's pretty good to have a flexible wizard.
Right. So, but it's not necessarily stuff you can do out the gate. I think the ritual stuff maybe, but definitely the other potential changes, which are going to be optional. So if we do end up publishing this, they will be listed as optional.
Yes.
For us, we like the option, so we're probably going to use them, and then we're going to test them out, see how they work.
Right.
And the other thing is, at some point, the wizards are going to be able to cast, at least somewhat cast, spontaneously. And I was thinking that instead of just switching it over at some level to precisely the way Arcane Evolved did it, instead, at some point, let the wizards not prepare a slot. So you leave a slot open. So I don't think in old editions you could do this, but some either 3rd or 3.5, you could leave a slot open and then fill it in like 15 minutes of study, something like that.
Yeah.
So we roll that into this so that a magic user can leave a slot open and either do that or use that slot spontaneously. And if they use the slot spontaneously, then they risk the spell fizzling. Or you might even, if you roll high enough, this is a little DCC-ish. If you roll high, roll high enough, it can actually be really cool. So what I have for detect magic is, let me see if I will share this.
I was surprised you took such a bite of DCC.
Right. So
I liked it.
So let's see. Can
I see it. Caster blind.
So I wish I could make this. I don't know how to do this with just the keyboard, making the anyway, making it bigger. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully the folks looking here on the video can see the table. Essentially, you
Make
cast
them
spontaneously, you make a D20 roll, because what the idea is, when you cast spontaneously, you're kind of grabbing the magical weave or whatever it is in your world you call it, because there is magical energy in the base game of D&D that the wizards use to manipulate that energy. So
Yes.
whatever you call it. So you're grabbing hold of that, kind of tiger by the tail-ish. And and if you roll poorly, you roll a natural 1, you go blind, because this is a detect spell that shows you information. If you roll a 1, it shuts you down.
Right.
To a degree.
How do you get higher than a 20 though?
I was just thinking there may be some bonuses you add in at some point.
Okay, maybe even intelligence modifier.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So if you roll high enough, your spell, you can detect magic the whole day.
Right.
For one whole day.
I'm cool with that.
For like a persistent or thing that you don't even have to cast again. So
yeah,
but
I like that.
It could even be that we don't list a way to get to 25 and leave that to the behest of the DM and the players to become creative and figure out.
What about it could be cool things you do. It could be spell secrets and spell books.
Could be that. It could be, hey, I just found this this mystical substance and nobody knows what it is. Maybe I can use it as a powerful component in the spell.
Weiss.
Yeah, something like that.
Weiss. Yeah, man, that'd be cool. You could do it. I like that. I think we should have a segment in the Mudsword book talking about making magic magical, making the world come alive, doing things to affect the rules of the game in a fun way, not just a super uber powerful way.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome. It's just not, but it's not detect magic, dude. I mean, even you can do it all day long. It's not like you're going to dominate the whole world because you can detect magic.
Right. And you have a really good chance that your spell doesn't even work.
Yes. Yeah, you do.
Actually. According to this, you have to roll a 13 or higher for it to even work.
Correct.
So,
you're taking a chance.
You're taking a chance there.
I think you absolutely could slide that in well before 7th level. That could be a 5th level or maybe even sooner if you're really motivated. If they want to try it, go ahead. I mean, you got a good shot of screwing. I mean, if you roll 12 or lower, which is more likely than rolling higher than 12, something's gonna happen that's not gonna be great.
You could go blind, you can be confused, the spell fails and you can't cast it for 24 hours, whether you have it prepared more than once or not.
Right.
Or it just fails. And you have 3 good results, and only one of them is it just acts normally. The rest of them are better.
And it's the most, and of the results, it's got the broadest possibility, 13 to 19. I like that, Joe. Yeah. That's good. I say, we'll be going with this. I like it. Yep.
All right.
Yep. Sounds good. And we could do that again with a few spells. Maybe not every spell becomes, spontaneous. Like eventually they will, but I mean, initially you can't even do certain spells spontaneous, no matter what. You can't do a spontaneous fireball, not until you become that level of a mage that you are doing stuff both basically at will.
Right. I was thinking that very same thing. I didn't think of any particular spells except for maybe wish. You never probably have to prepare wish to be able to use it. But
wish is actually not I don't like it as a spell.
I think what we should probably do is, instead of call it wish, we'll call it alter reality and change it a little bit so that it's less wishy and more just you're screwing around with reality to a certain degree. And you probably have, no matter what, instead of saying to the DM, you must look through, the the caster of the spell has to write up a 10-page document,
No.
and you have to go over very scrupulously and hold them to everything. No. Whenever you cast this, you have a table like this, right? That I have if cast spontaneously, even though you aren't going to be casting it, because you incur risk. So however you can think of that, it could be that whenever a wizard casts or magic user casts wish, all the gods sit up and take notice, and you run the risk of them saying, that's our purview, not yours.
Or it could be you got to pay the piper. I
Pay the
wish that
piper.
my intelligence was too high. Okay, it is. What ability is going to suffer for that?
Right.
You have to pay the piper for that. Oh, it's my strength. I don't care. Okay, so your 6 is now a 4. Okay. you know.
Okay, Professor Xavier, someone's got to push you around on a wheelchair now. Not a combat wheelchair either.
I grab my staff of the magic. Oh, you can't carry that anymore. 4 strength, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you can barely lift a cup to your lip.
Yeah, exactly. That's some good ideas, dude. You're working. Yeah, I like it. I like what you're doing. That's good. Anything else? Or are you ready to boogie?
We are ready.
Okay. If you'd like to support our show, please visit the many places you can find us on the interwebs. www.biggestgeekestpodcast.com. If you like clicking on the support tab, giving us a little cash, we will not say no. Twitter at Biggest Geekest, Facebook, facebook.com, Biggest Geekest Podcast, MeWe, Odyssey, and the YouTubes. You can find us on all those. Our email is thegeeks@biggestgeekestpodcast.com. Share this with your friends. Let us know if there's another way that you can listen or watch. We can support it better. Please subscribe, like, share, and rate us in all the places that you find us.
I need to add Discord to that. I keep failing to do that.
We need to get that Discord. I need to get in there and get that rolling to be a part of that. Before we boogie out of here, we didn't mention the contest. How are we doing on numbers at YouTube? Nothing to report?
We have 121.
Okay, we're creeping toward 250. Very cool. All right, man.
This is a slow crawl, but that's fine.
Yeah. Well, this is Randy.
And this is Joe.
Remember, you can't be big like us and be geeks like us.